Hi, I'm Henry,
And I'm Will.
and welcome to Sports Debaters.
Today we have a big occasion as we have Josh Levin
Yep.
of Slate.com, who is host of Hang Up and Listen Sports Podcast, joining us. So that is very exciting. Josh is on the line right now, and we're ready to ask him a few questions. Can you hear us, Josh?
I can. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, no problem. Alrighty, first off, we just want to obviously thank you, but we have our first question is about Donald Sterling and how this whole fallout has happened, and what do you think happens next, and who do you think the potential buyers are?
So, it sounds like from what I'm reading and hearing that Sterling has had it explained to him that there's going to be a lot more money coming in his direction if he doesn't fight the NBA, if he doesn't try to sue, given the kind of ballpark estimates of what the team could go for, north of $1 billion. It seems like it would be wise for him to just take the money and, I guess his reputation probably couldn't sink any lower.
Right.
Yeah.
If he sued the league, but there's just not that much upside in it for him at this point. He's such a pariah that, but he's also an unpredictable guy. He knows what he's going to do. But as far as the bidders, the potential owner, a lot of it seems like people trying to get publicity for themselves.
Absolutely.
So Floyd Mayweather.
I was going to say,
throwing his name in there, that seems unrealistic.
Yeah, what do you think of Floyd Mayweather? What his chances are now after his altercation with the rapper T.I. in Las Vegas? Do you think that hurts his reputation at all to try to buy the Clippers?
Maybe it takes the chances down from 0% to negative 1%
Yeah.
or something.
He may
I don't
be, yeah.
think that was ever plausible given his, history of violence against women and given all of the, his gambling on NBA games.
Mm-hmm.
The chances that I will own Clippers are greater than the chances that Floyd Mayweather will own the Clippers.
Yeah.
Who do you think the most reasonable bidder is at this point?
Yeah, who do you think has the highest chances of bidding and getting the next ownership of the Los Angeles Clippers?
Well, if the Magic Johnson group's bought the Dodgers, if they're interested, I don't really know what their cash flow situation is now, but Magics are obviously, somebody that the NBA would want an ownership, and there would be something poetic about him getting the team, given, how central he's been to the Sterling controversy. But I don't feel particularly clued in to know who the owner is going to be, but it does seem like, given the fact that it's in LA, that there's going to be no shortage of potential bidders and people with the kind of cash who would want to own this team that is on the rise, that is in, one of the biggest media markets that is, close to the entertainment capital of the U.S. So I think the NBA will not lack for options here.
Absolutely. It's obviously Los Angeles. Yeah. Los Angeles is a huge market and something a lot of people who can afford it would want to own a franchise such as the Clippers instead of a franchise such as the Bucks or the Suns or someone. All right, let's stay in the NBA but go to the draft. Who do you think the number one pick should be?
I do not have access to Joel Embiid's medical files. I tried.
I wish we all did.
But if he is, cleared, if it turns out that the stress fracture in his back does not seem like something that will be career altering, career shortening, then he seems like a guy that Cleveland will want, and then other teams will maybe want to trade up to get. It's just that with the specter of Greg Oden, that it just does seem like a bit of a psychological hurdle. And I imagine that there's going to be a lot of information and disinformation up into the draft about, what is in his medical file. The difference between this draft and the Oden draft is that, while Wiggins
Yeah,
and
Wiggins,
Jabari Parker are highly
exactly.
They're not maybe held in the same esteem as Durant was.
Right. Do you think that Parker or Wiggins deserve to go number one over Embiid?
That's a tough question. I think that it's easy to poke holes in both of them, and it's all a guessing game. Like LeBron James, for example, we knew when he came out of high school that he was the deserving number one pick, that he would be a great player. But was it clear that he would become, as he is now, one of the best mid-range shooters
exactly.
in the NBA? Like a lot of this stuff is dependent on how players improve. So if you say if they become the best possible player that you could imagine they could be, then I think you'd put Embiid 1, Wiggins 2, Parker 3, and maybe Wiggins you put 1 over Embiid. But it's a question of, if you're drafting number 1, are you going for the player who you think no matter what happens they'll be the best? What's the best kind of average scenario? Or are you going for the person that it's just kind of a philosophical question? Are you going for the person who, if everything turns out as well as it possibly could be, they'll be the best player?
Exactly.
Right. The risk of the number one pick is something the Cavs have dealt with over the years as they've had number one picks. Anthony Bennett, very risky pick, and right now it's not looking like he turned out so well, so who knows? So in my opinion, I would look at the Cavs and I would say you take the safest pick possible, and for me that's Jabari Parker, because I think right now he's the most polished NBA player player in this draft, as I said yesterday to Henry, because I don't see another player that right now has the type of, or can score the ball the type of way he can.
Well, I would ask you this though: if you look at each number one pick or each draft as an independent event, should you let the outcome of the previous event affect how you look at this one?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think if you're saying we should take the safe pick because we screwed up in the past, maybe you're not looking at things in the right way. But yeah, it's a philosophical question.
Right. It'll be very, very interesting as the Cavs have several choices on their hands, and they have a lot to think about over the next few weeks until leading up to the draft.
Yeah, and Josh, I have a question for you about sticking with the NBA, about the Washington Wizards. We saw how they were able to upset the Bulls and how they have a very young and talented backcourt that will prosper in the future. But what offseason acquisitions and what other things do you think they need to do in order to start competing with the bigger echelons and the teams like the Heat in the NBA?
Well, given the weakness of the Eastern Conference, it seems like it would be a pretty strong move if they were able to just stay intact.
Yeah.
Given that they're younger than a lot of the competition, you could certainly see them surpassing the Nets, given the aging roster there. But they've got decisions with Marcin Gortat and with Trevor Ariza, who are both unrestricted free agents. A lot of people seem to be talking about those guys as kind of a tandem. Do you decide whether to re-sign both of them or let them both go? But I would consider Gortat to be a guy that you really have to sign, and Ariza is somebody who maybe I would let go given his age and given
how much
his
money
skills are shooting threes and defending, and maybe you would hope to just get somebody cheaper who could fill that role. With Gortat, a center like him who can score and defend, and he's not, aging, he seems like somebody that if you want to contend, then you'd have to do whatever it takes to resign that guy.
Right. I love the Nene Gortat duo down low because, you look at the way that those two just shut down Joakim Noah, one of the best centers in the league. Taj Gibson, a very good power forward who is expected to start next year. Neither of them were able to be nearly as effective as they were for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so I agree.
Nene is somebody who is never healthy, so that's another reason to re-sign Gortat, because if you don't have Gortat and Nene is hurt, as he often is, then you're really sunk in the front court, and they do have some depth on the wings. But it's interesting to think of Washington as a free agent destination, which it has really never been, and there's no reason that it wouldn't be, given that, I live in D.C. It's a nice place to live, potential NBA free agent.
Mm-hmm. D.C., we went there in 8th grade, Henry.
Yeah, we certainly enjoyed our stay there, and I think
great for 8th graders, great for NBA players.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and, they haven't really been a very interesting destination or intriguing destination ever since Gilbert Arenas, kind of that whole situation blew up, but I would agree with you.
They're turning it around right now.
They are turning it around, and I think that with a couple key acquisitions, they could really become one of the top teams in the NBA, because we saw with John Wall and Bradley Beal, they are superstars in the making, I believe.
All right, Josh.
Yeah, and Toronto certainly would be another place that would be up and coming, and it'll be interesting to see if free agents would be willing to put aside their distaste for our friends in Canada to go sign up with an up-and-coming franchise.
Absolutely. All right, let's stay in the NBA, but now I stay in the NBA again, I should say. Let's go to the playoffs. Who do you think comes out? Obviously, the Heat are looking very, very good right now, and the Spurs and Thunder, I believe that series will go to 7 games. What are your opinions on the NBA playoffs right now, Josh?
Yeah, I think that you would be a fool not to bet on the Heat and make it to the finals. Because playing up 3-1, and the Western Conference series, I think you still have to favor the Spurs. You don't want to overreact too much to a single game, but obviously that game was very different in the first two because Serge Ibaka was back. But the Spurs are a funny case. When they look good, they really look unbeatable, unstoppable, because their offense is so fluid. It's just so intelligent. It looks like the way the basketball should be played. But they can really get fouled up by an athletic opponent that can defend really well. We've seen this with the Grizzlies, and Ibaka just really changes the Thunder team. But given that the Spurs have home court, given that the Spurs are already up 2-1, I really favor them to win that series still.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Josh. We saw Lance Stevenson make some comments about LeBron, and trash talking is a sign of his weakness. And then LeBron goes out and plays his best game of the series so far. Do you think it was dumb for Lance Stevenson to make those comments, or do you think that those comments needed to be made to get some sort of fire in that Pacers locker room?
Yeah. I would say none of the above. I would say that correlation is not causation. I think that you don't really need to go that far back in history to find LeBron James having great games and Lance Stevenson not being at all connected with him. I think no matter what Lance Stevenson said or did, LeBron James is going to have great games in this series. But I think that it doesn't. I don't think anyone particularly cares about what Lance Stevenson says, except maybe Lance Stevenson. And if he thinks that that's what'll entertain him, and it's something that is fun for him to do, or that fires him up, then I think it's fine. I don't think anybody particularly cares. There was just kind of a long gap in that series, and there was an absence of things to talk about, and that just filled the gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen Lance Stevenson over the last couple of years do a couple nutcase things that just really don't make any sense. But sticking with the series, do you think there's any possible chance that the Pacers can come back? Maybe if Roy Hibbert comes alive again and plays the game of game of the season, could you see the Pacers turning it around again, Josh?
Sure. I mean, I certainly wouldn't bet on them to do so, but it's anything's possible. It's not. It's obviously not crazy to imagine them winning Game 5 at home, and then the way that they're thinking about it, the way that Frank Vogel talked about it at that conference was, after we lost Game 2, we knew that we just had to win, hold serve at home and win one game on the road, and that hasn't changed. If they hold serve at home and win Game 6 in Miami, they win the series. Now,
exactly.
Extremely unlikely, but it's not impossible. You know, I think it's better than if they were down 3-1 and had 2 games on the road and only won at home.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Josh, let's go to the NHL playoffs. As we saw the Kings just absolutely dismantle the Blackhawks last night. Well, right now, it seems as destiny's leaning towards the Kings getting to the Stanley Cup against the Rangers. Do you think either the Canadiens or the Blackhawks can turn it around and come back from a deficit as they're in?
I'm going to have to throw my sports debaters lifeline here because I haven't been following the NHL playoffs. I need you guys to tell me what's going to happen. I could actually use that information.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, the Kings have absolutely destroyed the Blackhawks.
Yeah,
the past 3 games ever since Game 2, and so in Game 2, the third period, the Kings scored 6 goals. Ever since then, the Blackhawks have not really recovered, and
that's a lot of goals.
It is a lot of goals. And then last night they scored 3 in the first.
Yeah,
it seems as if the Blackhawks are just going downhill. But then, right after that, periods 2 and 3, the Blackhawks probably outplayed the Kings. But the fact they got themselves in such a big hole,
yeah.
So early in the game, they weren't able to come back. And for the Canadiens lost their starting goalie Carey Price in Game 1. Which has hurt, but the Rangers have clearly outplayed them. Clearly, are the better team, and I would say right now the Kings are clearly the better team.
Yeah.
Even though yesterday I said I was sticking with Canadiens Blackhawks as I said in the first round of the playoffs. But do you think that looking at the Blackhawks and looking at the Kings, both teams have gone to the Western Conference Finals so often in the past 6 years that the experience in coming back from a series isn't that big of a deal?
Well, I think that in hockey, it's been shown that the chances of a comeback are greater.
Yeah. They are.
In basketball, because you're asking about Indiana and Miami. I think that it's fair to say that after 4 or 5 games in a series, it can be pretty clear
who's the better team.
Is superior. You can see how the matchups play out. And in hockey, as a more casual hockey viewer, it does seem to me that series can just totally switch. It can switch from period to period where one team is dominating, and then you have no idea what's going on, but it just completely goes in the other direction. And you said that the Rangers have been dominating, which I think that's probably true. But there was also an overtime game,
exactly.
So if the Canadiens get a bounce in that series,
absolutely.
So, I think that I would favor the Blackhawks over the Pacers in that parlay. The Blackhawks have clearly, shown that they can beat this team in the past, and they're coming off a title. So don't write them off just yet, Chicago fans.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that hockey is largely a game about momentum. If you're playing really well right then, you know what, you can go on and win 3 games, but we've seen in hockey before that you can come back from a 3-0 deficit.
I was going to say, you look at the Kings, in the first round of the playoffs, they were down 3-0. They came back and won in Game 7. They're now 1 game away from the Stanley Cup. That's pretty remarkable to think about. You look at being you had to win 4 games in a row, and now you're looking at you're looking pretty right at the Stanley Cup. So I look at that, and then I look at the Rangers, and I see, in my opinion, they've outplayed the Canadiens, but the Canadiens continue to hang on, and push these games to overtime. Where one of them they won, and that was, in my opinion, that was the Rangers game. They deserved to win that game, but the Canadiens snuck it out. So really, once you get to overtime, anything can happen.
Exactly.
I want to ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
How do you watch all these games? Do you watch?
Oh, we don't go to school, Josh.
Yeah, Josh. This is our job.
We don't go to school. I don't usually watch all the games. I usually see the highlights on ESPN or so. But luckily, right as playoff time has come, school's kind of slowed down a little bit, and I usually am able to catch the second to third period of either a hockey game or third and fourth quarters of a basketball game. So I've been lucky to do that.
Yeah, I mean, being an avid sports fan, whenever I have free time, I'm on the TV checking out the stats online. So whenever I have time, I'm researching and writing, and just trying to watch some sports.
Excellent.
All right, Josh. I know you said that you were a Mets fan, but I got a Nationals question for you. First off, have you seen Steven Strasburg pitch in person yet?
I have, but not this season.
Okay.
So, more kind of in the early days of Strasburg.
Right. Do you feel that he is an elite pitcher in Major League Baseball right now?
I would say so. I guess I'd have to look at the stats to see where he stacks up. My day-to-day knowledge of baseball has decreased since I stopped playing fantasy baseball, which I made as a lifestyle choice.
You got to get back on that.
You guys have made this decision, but it's
not yet.
It's freed up a lot of time for me to pursue other things, such as wasting time in other ways.
Mm-hmm. I'm currently in a fantasy baseball league with my extended family. I have cousins, my brother, my grandpa, my uncles. We're all in a fantasy baseball league, and I spend too much time on it, and that's why I found this question interesting. Is because I look at Steven Strasburg's stats, and he's currently fourth in Major League Baseball with 81 strikeouts so far. But then you look at his earned run average; he's 30th in just the National League. So I compare those stats, and I think, is he an elite pitcher? And then I look at some of the other pitchers that have had surprisingly good years, such as Julio Teheran of the Braves, or I look at even Jared Weaver, who started off slow and has been phenomenal ever since his first 3 games. I go back and forth, and I see some pitchers that don't have the names. They don't have the names such as Steven Strasburg, the one that everyone knows.
Exactly.
But they've really been having better years so far. So
Right. Well, I think strikeouts are a pretty good indicator. A lot of ERA is dependent on a lot of things that are not in a pitcher's control, whereas strikeouts are entirely under pitcher's control. I guess the batter, the catcher, and the umpire have some influence there. But I bet if you looked at the guys with the top strikeout numbers, if you fast forward to the end of the year, I bet Strasburg's ERA will come down and he'll be higher up on those rankings.
Yeah, and I also think that it's kind of early in the season, so I think it's hard to kind of determine if someone's elite or not by...
Well, I wasn't saying elite just this year, but in his career.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen that in the past couple of years. His ERA is way lower than a 3.42 it is right now. So I think it's still... The jury's out for this season. He might not have as spectacular of a season as he's had before, but I think that with a couple more weeks going on, I think that he can still go back to his level of that he's usually.
Let's think about this. Jeff Samardzija of the Cubs has had a phenomenal year. He's at 1 point. He has the second best ERA in the National League and one of the top 5 best in all of baseball. Yet he's only won 1 game so far. So you look at that. Who do you take? Do you take Steven Strasburg, who can get a lot of strikeouts, or do you take Jeff Samardzija, who has really been, he really deserves a lot more wins, a lot more credit than he gets, but he's really had one of the best years so far.
Well, I think the wins and losses also is kind of a biased stat in the aspect of it largely depends on how good your team is.
Right.
Because if you're not scoring runs, like Samardzija, he's had a fantastic year, you're not going to win any games.
Well, Josh, let me ask you this. Do you take Samardzija or do you take Strasburg?
Can I have both? I'm not allowed to have both.
You can't have both.
Samardzija doesn't have the injury history. Plus, he played at Notre Dame, so I'll actually downgrade him for that. I would take Strasburg. No offense to Notre Dame fans.
I know. We had this conversation before. He's an LSU fan, so
okay.
I think that if you're the Cubs, you got to deal Samardzija by the trade deadline.
Really?
Easily. He's one of the top pitchers in baseball right now, and the reason he's so appealing to other teams in the playoff race is he has a year and a half left on his contract. So it's not like you're getting a player for half a year. You're getting him for a year and a half, and boy, is he one good pitcher right now. He's hitting the stride of his career, and I really think that right now, Samardzija's at an all-time high, and the Cubs must deal him. All right, Henry. Or not Henry, Josh. I saw you were talking about California Chrome a little bit on one of your podcasts. Do you think he goes and wins the Triple Crown this weekend?
Oh man, you're asking me to predict a lot of things, man.
I'm counting. You better get all of them right. If you don't get any of them right, you're never welcome back, Josh.
I'm kind of anti-prediction because I think that one of the best things about sports is the unpredictability. If we knew what was going to happen,
it's no fun.
Then why would we watch?
Yeah.
And I really, the honest answer is I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't know. I think that everybody will be rooting for this horse.
Yeah, I mean, what
if nobody was going for a Triple Crown, so I prefer to just kind of sit back and watch and see what happens.
He's got a lot of people's attention, so obviously I'm watching for sure. Are you watching?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that it's kind of a crapshoot to know if he's going to win or lose. I mean, what I know though is that it's a fantastic story, and that I'm rooting for him. Obviously, I'm rooting for California Chrome, and hopefully he wins. But you never know, I guess, until it happens.
All right, Josh. Our final question for you is whether you think Jurgen Klinsmann's decision to leave Landon Donovan off the U.S. 23-man roster was a wise one or not.
That I am very happy to answer, and I think that it was not really a wise decision. I was convinced by my colleague Stefan's story that he wrote on Slate, the argument that this seemed like it was a lot more personal than it was tactical, given Klinsmann's history with Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the tweets of his son even, I mean, you saw there seemed to be some personal rifts between the Klinsmann family and Landon Donovan, and I think that it seems like it does go past the field and actually onto the more personal level.
It's certainly an interesting one. It's a gutsy one, but that's one that either could pay off dividends or...
I mean, it could get him fired.
Or it could get him fired. Everyone will be blaming Klinsmann. So, obviously, the World Cup...
I'm not actually sure what are the dividends to leaving him off the roster. I mean, is there anybody... Is the 23rd man on the roster somebody that's gonna, I mean, who knows? Maybe the 23rd man on the roster could be somebody that makes a difference. I just don't really understand the argument for what's the great compelling reason to not have him there.
I think that the one reason that Jurgen Klinsmann may have had was that if we look back a couple weeks ago, we saw Landon Donovan's comments about he can't have 3 great practices in a row. It's just not possible with his body. Well, if you're in the World Cup and you're in Brazil where the heat is going to be extreme, you're going to be traveling all of the time, you need fit and athletic people who can play 90 minutes straight. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't fit that scheme, so that could have been part of the more tactical reason, but it seems kind of like a BS answer if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that if that's the case, they could have used him as a substitute. And he's somebody that all of his teammates
right. Someone that can come on the 80th minute.
An issue of him saying things out loud that all athletes or many athletes think, but keep to themselves. And I think Klinsmann is somebody who has a kind of narrow conception of what athletes should say, what they should think, what they should be like, and it's all very, like you should be a warrior, and I think that he didn't particularly respect Donovan for taking time off and for
the sabbatical.
Maybe soccer wasn't 100% most important thing in his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also think that this could have also stemmed from the MLS versus Europe. I mean, we've seen Jurgen Klinsmann state that he wants his top players playing in the best leagues in the world. Yet we see the best player in the U.S. possibly playing in the MLS, and I think that this kind of philosophical debate didn't really help Landon Donovan make the squad at the end.
Well, I think that would be a stronger argument if he had left more MLS guys off the team. I mean,
that is true. Yeah.
Guys who are on the edge, like Wondolowski, Dan Gray, Yedlin, didn't make it. Dempsey and Bradley. It's not like he was going to leave them off. Went back to MLS. I think that it's more just him and Donovan having totally different kinds of philosophies about how soccer and life fit together and balance.
Yeah, that's a good point. And now, who are you most surprised made the World Cup roster? Who do you think Donovan's spot should have been replaced by?
Well, it wouldn't get a 1-for-1.
Okay.
Because John Brooks is a defender.
Yeah, John Brooks from.
He was a guy who looked really bad.
Against Ukraine, he completely let up one of the goals. He just decided not to mark his man.
Yeah, and you can't say that a guy is not going to have a good career because of one game. But he looked like he wasn't ready. It makes you wonder with him and with Julian Green if maybe a promise was made that they would make the World Cup roster, that they would top tie themselves to the U.S. But I think Chris Wondolowski, is striker, is somebody who will probably come on as a substitute and play a very limited role. I'm not sure that that's something that Donovan couldn't do better. So.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Josh. We thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for answering all our questions.
Thank you so much.
It was a ton of fun, and we hope to have you back another time soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay.
No problem. Bye. Alrighty, that's all we have for this week, Henry.
Yep.
Tune in next week.
Of course.
Discuss some more NBA and NHL playoffs. Maybe the series will be decided. Hopefully not. Hopefully we see some Game 7s.
And spread the world of sports debaters.
See ya.
Bye.